The arrival of the apex predators. The Vrexer were a nightmare made flesh, a species forged in the crucible of galactic warfare. Standing over 8 feet tall, their armored exoskeletons shimmered like obsidian, and their 4 razor-edged limbs moved with an almost mechanical precision. They were perfect killing machines, unmatched in strength, intellect, and technology. Across countless worlds, the mere mention of their name was enough to make entire civilizations surrender without a fight. When the Vrexer turned their gaze toward Earth, it wasn't out of necessity. The planet held no unique resources or tactical significance. To them, conquering Earth was just another step in their relentless march of domination, a statement to the galaxy that resistance was futile. The first sign of their arrival came in the form of an ominous silence. Satellites and communication networks around the globe failed simultaneously, plunging Earth into confusion. Then came the ships, monolithic vessels that blotted out the sun, casting entire cities in shadow. Humanity's greatest telescopes had never detected their approach, and now it was too late. World leaders scrambled to respond. The United Nations convened an emergency session, debates erupting over whether to fight or surrender. Peace envoys were dispatched with messages of cooperation and diplomacy. The Vrexer never responded. Instead, they broadcast a single message to the entire planet. Your existence is irrelevant. Submit or be eradicated. The invasion began within hours. Major cities were reduced to smoldering craters by energy weapons that defied understanding. The Vrexer's ground forces moved with surgical precision, subduing populations and dismantling defenses. Tanks, jets, and missiles, none of it mattered. Humanity's best efforts were little more than a nuisance to the invaders. But where the Vrexer saw only weakness, they failed to notice the seeds of humanity's strength. In the ruins of New York, Captain Daniel Hayes led a small group of survivors through the labyrinth of collapsed buildings. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of burnt metal, but their determination burned brighter. Hayes, a decorated soldier, had seen his share of battles, but nothing like this. As the group reached a makeshift shelter, a voice crackled over the radio. "This is Dr. Sylvia Harker. If anyone can hear this, I need help. I found something. Something they don't want us to know." The survivors exchanged glances. Hayes tightened his grip on his rifle. "We're not going down without a fight," he said. Sylvia's message was no accident. As a leading expert in evolutionary biology, she had spent her life studying the adaptability of life on Earth. When the Vrexer invaded, Sylvia had been working in a remote laboratory, safe from the initial destruction. There, she discovered a critical flaw in the invaders, something hidden in their DNA. While the world seemed to crumble, whispers of resistance spread. Guerrilla fighters began striking at Vrexer supply lines, using traps and ambushes to slow their advance. Farmers turned their fields into battle zones, rigging explosives in irrigation systems. Scientists like Sylvia worked in secret to uncover weaknesses, while hackers disrupted the Vrexer's communications. For the first time, the Vrexer faced something they hadn't encountered in millennia: unpredictability. In a hidden bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, leaders of the resistance convened. On a flickering holographic map, red dots marked areas of Vrexer control, spreading across the globe like a stain. "Dr. Harker," said a grizzled general, turning to Sylvia, "what's this discovery of yours? We're running out of time." Sylvia's voice was calm but firm. "The Vrexer's genetic engineering has made them powerful, yes, but also vulnerable. Their immune systems are so specialized, they can't adapt quickly to new pathogens. We can exploit that." The room fell silent. Then, murmurs of hope rippled through the crowd. Outside, the war raged on. Cities fell, millions were displaced, and humanity's future hung by a thread. But in the shadows, a spark of defiance began to glow. The Vrexer had underestimated their prey. And humanity wasn't done fighting. The resistance awakens. The Vrexer celebrated what they believed to be a swift and inevitable conquest. Yet, beneath the layers of destruction and despair, humanity's resilience began to take shape. Across the globe, small pockets of resistance formed, scattered but determined to fight back. These groups didn't have advanced weaponry or armor, but they had something the Vrexer couldn't understand, an unyielding will to survive. Dr. Sylvia Harker's discovery became the cornerstone of this newfound resistance. In her remote laboratory, she worked tirelessly to weaponize the pathogen she developed, a virus capable of targeting the Vrexer's unique physiology. But time was running out, and resources were scarce. Sylvia's voice became a beacon of hope on the Resistance's encrypted radio network, urging anyone with medical or scientific expertise to join her cause. In the ruins of Chicago, Captain Daniel Hayes had taken up the mantle of leadership among a ragtag group of survivors. Their numbers included former soldiers, engineers, medics, and even civilians with no combat experience but an unshakable resolve. The group's first objective was to make contact with Sylvia. "We can't keep running," Hayes told his team during a strategy meeting in an abandoned subway station. "If Dr. Harker's right, her work could turn this war around. But we've got to get her what she needs, and keep her alive." The plan was risky. The lab was in the middle of a Vrexer-occupied zone, surrounded by automated drones and roving patrols. But the team had no choice. Armed with scavenged weapons and improvised explosives, they prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. The journey to the lab was a harrowing one. The group moved under the cover of night, avoiding Vrexer patrols and using the city's sewer systems to stay hidden. Along the way, they encountered other survivors, frightened families, wounded soldiers, and even a small group of rogue hackers who had been disrupting Vrexer systems. Hayes offered them all a choice: stay hidden or join the fight. Many chose to fight. As the team neared the lab, they faced their first major obstacle, a Vrexer checkpoint. The towering aliens, armed with plasma rifles, scanned the area with cold precision. Hayes devised a plan on the spot, sending a small group to create a diversion while the rest slipped through. The diversion worked, but at a cost. 2 of Hayes's team members were lost in the ensuing skirmish, their sacrifices etched into the hearts of those who remained. With heavy hearts, the group pressed on. When they finally reached the lab, Sylvia greeted them with a mixture of relief and urgency. The lab was a chaotic mess of equipment, charts, and samples, but it was the only hope humanity had. "You made it," Sylvia said, her voice shaking with exhaustion. "But we're not safe yet. The Vrexer know I'm here. They'll come for us." Hayes nodded grimly. "Then we'll make this place a fortress. Whatever you need, we'll get it. Just tell us how to help." The team sprang into action, fortifying the lab with whatever they could find: metal plates, barbed wire, and even booby traps rigged with scavenged explosives. Engineers worked to reinforce the lab's perimeter, while medics tended to the wounded. Sylvia briefed the group on her progress, explaining how the pathogen worked and what was still needed to complete it. The pathogen, she explained, targeted the Vrexer's neural pathways, disrupting their ability to coordinate movements and weakening their immune systems. But producing enough of it to make an impact required specialized equipment and rare materials, most of which were deep in Vrexer-controlled territory. "We'll get what you need," Hayes said firmly. "We've come this far. We're not stopping now." As the team planned their next moves, an unexpected transmission crackled over the radio. It was a plea for help from another resistance group under attack by the Vrexer. The team faced a difficult decision: stay and protect the lab, or risk everything to save their allies. Hayes looked at his team, seeing the exhaustion and determination in their eyes. "We can't win this alone," he said. "If we let them fall, we'll be next. We move out at dawn." The team prepared for another dangerous mission, knowing that every step forward brought them closer to either victory or annihilation. Meanwhile, the Vrexer were beginning to notice something troubling. Reports of human resistance were growing, and their forces were sustaining losses in areas they'd previously controlled with ease. For the first time in millennia, the apex predators of the galaxy faced an enemy they couldn't fully comprehend, an enemy that refused to give up, no matter the odds. The Vrexers' underestimation of humanity would soon prove to be their greatest mistake. Striking back. As dawn broke over the ruined cityscape, Captain Hayes and his team set out on their rescue mission. The lab was fortified, and Sylvia worked feverishly with a skeleton crew to prepare the pathogen. Every second counted, but Hayes knew the resistance couldn't survive in isolation. Humanity's strength had always been its unity, and now more than ever, that bond was their greatest weapon. The distress signal had come from a small resistance cell hiding in a crumbling industrial district. The Vrexer had launched a surprise assault, and their survival depended on reinforcements. Hayes's team navigated the treacherous terrain, avoiding drone patrols and using the rubble to their advantage. Liu Chen, the team's resourceful engineer, had rigged a small EMP device capable of disabling Vrexer tech in a localized area. As they approached the industrial district, the device became their ace in the hole. "It'll only give us a minute or two," Liu warned, "but that should be enough to even the odds." The sound of battle grew louder as they neared their destination. Energy blasts echoed through the streets, and the acrid smell of scorched metal filled the air. Hayes signaled for the team to split into two groups, one to flank the Vrexer forces and the other to protect the trapped resistance fighters. The battle was fierce. The Vrexer's towering forms loomed over the humans, their plasma rifles cutting through the air with lethal precision. But humanity's unpredictability once again proved to be their greatest asset. Using guerrilla tactics, Hayes's team exploited the terrain, striking from the shadows and disappearing before the Vrexer could retaliate. Liu's EMP device was deployed at the perfect moment. The pulse disabled the Vrexer's weapons and drones, leaving them vulnerable to close-quarters combat. Hayes led the charge, his movements precise and deliberate. The humans fought with a ferocity that caught the Vrexer off guard, and one by one, the invaders fell. The remaining resistance fighters, emboldened by the arrival of reinforcements, joined the fray. What began as a desperate defense turned into a counterattack, driving the Vrexer out of the district. When the dust settled, the humans stood victorious. Among the rescued fighters was Commander Elena Torres, a seasoned leader with invaluable tactical knowledge. She had been coordinating resistance efforts across multiple regions before the Vrexer assaults scattered her forces. Grateful for the rescue, she offered to join Hayes's team and share vital intel. Back at the lab, Sylvia was making progress but faced an urgent problem: the pathogen needed a delivery system capable of dispersing it on a large scale. Without it, the virus would only be effective in isolated pockets, leaving the bulk of the Vrexer forces untouched. When Hayes and his team returned with Torres, the lab buzzed with renewed energy. The rescued fighters brought additional supplies and expertise, bolstering the resistance's capabilities. Sylvia briefed everyone on the pathogen and its potential to turn the tide of the war. "We've got the weapon," Sylvia said, "but we need a way to deliver it. Airborne drones would be ideal, but we don't have the resources to build enough of them." Liu stepped forward, her eyes glinting with determination. "What if we hijack theirs? The Vrexer drones are fast, efficient, and widespread. If we can reprogram them, we can use their own technology against them." It was a bold idea, but the team had come to expect nothing less from Liu. The group quickly devised a plan to infiltrate a Vrexer drone hub located on the outskirts of the city. The hub was heavily guarded, but if they could gain access, Liu believed she could reprogram the drones to carry the pathogen. As preparations began for the mission, Hayes gathered the team. "This is it," he said. "If we pull this off, we'll have a real shot at winning this war. But we've got to be ready for anything. The Vrexer won't let us take this easily." The team knew the risks, but no one hesitated. They had seen what the Vrexer were capable of and knew what was at stake. Failure wasn't an option, not for them, not for humanity. Meanwhile, the Vrexer leadership, sensing the growing resistance, began to adjust their tactics. They had underestimated humanity's resourcefulness, and the losses they'd sustained were unacceptable. A directive was issued: escalate the conflict. Unbeknownst to the resistance, a new wave of Rexer forces was already on its way, more advanced, more ruthless, and determined to crush the growing rebellion. Humanity's fight was far from over, but for the first time, the Vrexer faced a species they couldn't conquer with fear alone. The infiltration. The night was eerily quiet as Hayes and his team approached the Vrexer drone hub. The facility stood like a monolithic fortress, its metallic walls gleaming under the pale light of the alien moon that now dominated Earth's sky. Swarms of drones buzzed in and out of the hub like a mechanized hive, their movements precise and relentless. This was the heart of the Vrexer's technological dominance, and humanity's best chance to turn the tide. The resistance team had spent days planning the mission. Liu Chen had drawn up schematics based on intercepted Vrexer transmissions, identifying weak points in the hub's defenses. Commander Torres provided tactical oversight, ensuring the plan accounted for the Vrexer's patrol patterns and rapid response units. Every member of the team had a role to play, and every step had to go perfectly. "This is it," Hayes whispered to the group as they crouched in the shadows of a crumbling overpass. "In and out. No unnecessary risks. We stick to the plan." The team nodded in unison, their faces steeled with determination. Liu activated a small jammer device she'd built, temporarily disrupting the drone's scanning systems. "We've got 5 minutes before they recalibrate," she said. "Move fast." They slipped through the outer perimeter, navigating past automated turrets and motion sensors. Liu led the way, her knowledge of Vrexer tech proving invaluable as she disabled traps and rerouted surveillance feeds. Inside the hub, the air hummed with the sound of machines. The team split into 2 groups, one to secure the control room, where Liu would reprogram the drones, and the other to plant explosives on key structural points as a contingency plan. The control room was a hive of activity, with Vrexer technicians monitoring streams of data. The team's entrance was swift and brutal. Hayes and Torres led the charge, neutralizing the alien guards before they could raise the alarm. Liu immediately got to work, plugging into the mainframe with a device she'd modified from scavenged Vrexer components. "This system's a nightmare," Liu muttered, her fingers flying over the console. "But I've got it. Just keep them off me." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the facility. The Vrexer had discovered the intrusion. Reinforcements poured into the hub, their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. The second team, led by Hayes, engaged the invaders in a fierce firefight. The Vrexer's superior firepower was offset by the humans' creativity and improvisation. Explosives rigged from household materials and precise ambush tactics kept the aliens at bay, but the situation grew more desperate by the minute. "Liu, how much longer?" Hayes shouted over the comms. "Almost there," she replied, sweat dripping from her brow. "Just a few more seconds." The console beeped, and a message in alien script flashed across the screen. "Got it!" Liu exclaimed. "The drones are ours. I've programmed them to distribute the pathogen." The victory was short-lived. The Vrexer reinforcements were closing in, and the team was running out of ammunition. "We need to move," Torres barked, covering Liu as she gathered her equipment. The group fought their way back toward the exit, but the Vrexer had sealed the perimeter. Trapped and outnumbered, the team prepared for a final stand. Hayes activated the explosives they'd planted earlier, creating a massive shockwave that took out a portion of the hub and many of the pursuing Vrexer. The team managed to escape through an underground maintenance tunnel, emerging battered but alive on the other side of the city. The hub lay in ruins behind them, and the hijacked drones began deploying the pathogen across Vrexer-controlled territories. The pathogen unleashed. The first signs of the pathogen's effectiveness appeared within hours. Reports came in from resistance cells worldwide. Vrexer patrols were collapsing, their soldiers exhibiting erratic behavior and severe weakness. Drones, now under human control, became harbingers of destruction, spreading the pathogen further and disrupting the Vrexer's operations. At the lab, Sylvia monitored the pathogen's progress with a mix of hope and caution. "It's working," she said, her voice trembling. "But it's only the beginning. They'll retaliate." Hayes nodded grimly. "Let them. We'll be ready." But as the Resistance celebrated their first major victory, the Vrexer leadership convened on their flagship, orbiting Earth. The losses were unacceptable, and their emperor issued a chilling directive: escalate the conflict with their most devastating weapons. Humanity had struck back, but the Vrexer were about to unleash horrors beyond imagination. Retaliation. The Vrexer did not take defeat lightly. From their flagship, a floating monstrosity the size of a small moon, the Vrexer Emperor issued a grim order: deploy the Extinction Protocol. This ancient weapon, forged in the early days of the Vrexer Empire, had eradicated entire civilizations before. It was a weapon of last resort, and now it was aimed at Earth. Humanity's brief moment of triumph was shattered as new waves of destruction swept across the planet. Orbital strikes from the Vrexer flagship targeted key resistance hubs, reducing them to ash. Cities that had barely survived the initial invasion were obliterated in moments. At the lab, Sylvia watched the devastation unfold on a flickering monitor. Her hands clenched into fists. "They're escalating," she said. "They're trying to crush our morale." Hayes, who had just returned from a supply run, placed a hand on her shoulder. "They want us to break," he said. "But we're not going to give them that satisfaction." In the midst of the chaos, Liu Chen worked tirelessly to repurpose more Vrexer tech. The hijacked drones were spreading the pathogen effectively, but it wasn't enough. "We need a way to hit their flagship," she said, her eyes blazing with determination. "If we can take it out, we can cut the head off the snake." Commander Torres nodded. "The flagship is the key. Without their command structure, the Vrexer forces will collapse. But it's a fortress. We'd need a miracle to get close enough." Liu grinned, holding up a device she had been tinkering with. "How about a miracle and a little ingenuity? I've cracked their cloaking technology. We can use it to sneak aboard." The team quickly devised a daring plan: infiltrate the flagship, plant explosives, and destroy it from within. It was a suicide mission in every sense, but it was their best shot at survival. Hayes, Torres, Sylvia, and Liu would lead the operation, while the remaining resistance fighters would launch a massive diversionary assault on the Vrexer ground forces to buy them time. The final mission. Under the cover of darkness, the infiltration team boarded a stolen Vrexer shuttle outfitted with Liu's cloaking device. The journey to the flagship was tense, every second feeling like an eternity. The team knew the odds of survival were slim, but they also knew what was at stake. Inside the shuttle, Sylvia broke the silence. "If we don't make it back, I want you all to know it's been an honor fighting alongside you." Hayes smirked. "Don't start saying your goodbyes just yet. We've got a job to do." As they approached the flagship, Liu activated the cloaking device. The massive vessel loomed before them, its surface bristling with weapons and defenses. The team held their breath as the shuttle slipped past the enemy's scanners and docked in a maintenance bay. The interior of the flagship was a maze of corridors, guarded by Vrexer soldiers and automated sentries. The team moved swiftly, using the stolen codes Liu had retrieved to bypass security. Every step brought them closer to the ship's power core, where they would plant the explosives. But the Vrexer were not entirely unprepared. The moment the humans breached the core chamber, alarms blared, and reinforcements swarmed the area. "Hold them off!" Hayes shouted, firing his rifle at the advancing aliens. "Liu, get those charges set." Liu worked frantically, her hands moving with practiced precision as she placed the explosives. Sylvia and Torres provided cover, using their scavenged weapons to keep the Vrexer at bay. As the last charge was armed, a deep voice echoed through the chamber. The Vrexer Emperor himself appeared, flanked by his elite guard. He was an imposing figure, his towering form radiating menace. "You think you can defy us?" the Emperor snarled. "Your defiance is meaningless. You are insects before the might of the Vrexer." Hayes stepped forward, his weapon trained on the Emperor. "Funny," he said, smirking. "You don't look so invincible to me." The battle that followed was brutal. The Emperor's guard fought with terrifying efficiency, their strength and speed unmatched. But humanity's adaptability once again proved to be their greatest strength. Using traps and explosives, the team managed to thin the ranks of their enemies. Finally, with the charges set and the Emperor wounded, Hayes gave the signal to retreat. "Leah, Sylvia, get to the shuttle," he barked. "What about you?" Sylvia asked, her voice trembling. Hayes shook his head. "I'll cover you. Go." The team hesitated, but there was no time to argue. Leah and Sylvia ran for the shuttle, while Hayes and Torres stayed behind to hold off the remaining Vrexer forces. As the shuttle launched, the explosives detonated, ripping through the flagship with a blinding explosion. The ship's destruction sent shockwaves across the battlefield, and the Vrexer forces on the ground faltered, their coordination shattered. Hayes and Torres didn't make it out. Their sacrifice, like so many others, became a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit. The destruction of the flagship marked a turning point in the war. The remaining Vrexer forces, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Humanity, battered but unbroken, stood victorious. Back at the lab, Sylvia and Leah watched the Vrexer ships retreat into the void. "We did it," Leah said, her voice filled with both relief and sorrow. Sylvia nodded, tears in her eyes. "We survived. But we'll never forget the ones who made it possible." As Earth began to rebuild, the galaxy took notice. Humanity, the species once dismissed as weak and insignificant, had risen to become a force to be reckoned with. And the Vrexer learned a lesson they would never forget: never underestimate humanity. The aftermath of the Vrexer flagship's destruction sent ripples throughout the galaxy. What was once considered an inevitable conquest had become a symbol of resistance. On Earth, the survivors began the slow process of rebuilding their shattered world. But this was more than just a recovery, it was a transformation. Humanity had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, united by a singular purpose: never again. The Vrexer retreat was not the end of the war. Scattered fleets still lingered across the solar system, and remnants of their ground forces continued to terrorize isolated regions. But the loss of their leadership had shattered their cohesion. Without the Emperor and their flagship, the invincible predators were now little more than disorganized raiders. Dr. Sylvia Harker stood at the heart of Earth's efforts to rebuild and defend. Her pathogen had turned the tide of the war, but she knew it was only part of the solution. Sylvia had become a figurehead of humanity's scientific and strategic advancement, leading a coalition of Earth's brightest minds. "Adaptation is our strength," she told a gathering of resistance leaders. "We've proven that we can rise to any challenge. Now, we must ensure this never happens again. We must become the defenders of not just Earth, but the galaxy. A united planet." For the first time in history, humanity was truly united. The resistance had forged a bond that transcended borders, cultures, and ideologies. Leaders from every surviving nation convened to form the United Earth Coalition, a governing body focused on planetary defense and exploration. Leah Chen was appointed head of the coalition's newly formed Tech Advancement Division. Her expertise in reverse engineering Vrexer technology was unmatched, and her innovations had already begun to transform Earth's defenses. "We're not just rebuilding," Leah said during her first address to the coalition. "We're evolving." The Vrexer thought they were the pinnacle of evolution. They were wrong. Humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate, that's our true strength. Under Leah's leadership, humanity began developing hybrid technology that combined the best of human ingenuity and salvaged Vrexer advancements. Shields that could repel energy weapons, drones capable of self-repair, and propulsion systems designed for interstellar travel, all were born from the crucible of war. The hunt for the remnants. While Earth rebuilt, specialized task forces were deployed to hunt down the remaining Vrexer forces. Sylvia's pathogen had spread rapidly, weakening their soldiers and disrupting their technology. The Vrexer remnants were no longer a unified threat, but they were still dangerous. Captain Hayes's legacy lived on through these task forces, which adopted his guerrilla tactics and unwavering determination. Stories of humans liberating entire regions from the Vrexer became a source of hope and pride, solidifying humanity's reputation as a species that would never back down. Commander Elena Torres led one of the most successful campaigns, systematically dismantling Vrexer outposts across the solar system. Her strategic brilliance and unrelenting drive earned her the nickname, the Shield of Earth. "We don't fight for revenge," Torres told her troops before every mission. "We fight for survival. For the future." The galaxy takes notice. Humanity's victory over the Vrexer did not go unnoticed. Across the galaxy, species that had once cowered before the apex predators began to see humans in a new light. Messages of solidarity and gratitude poured in from distant civilizations, many of which had suffered under Vrexer rule. One such message came from the Trinari, a peaceful race of scholars whose homeworld had been enslaved for centuries. They offered their knowledge and resources to aid Earth's recovery, forging an alliance that marked the beginning of humanity's role as a galactic power. But not all species were pleased with humanity's rise. The Vrexer's defeat upset the delicate balance of power in the galaxy, and rival empires began to view Earth as a potential threat. Sylvia, aware of the growing tension, urged caution. "We've won this war," she said during a coalition meeting. "But the galaxy is watching. We must be prepared for what comes next." A new dawn. As Earth rebuilt, a massive effort was undertaken to explore the stars. The coalition authorized the construction of humanity's first interstellar fleet, designed not only for defense but also for exploration and diplomacy. Leah and Sylvia worked together to lead this initiative. Their partnership, forged in the fires of war, became a symbol of humanity's unity and innovation. "Every setback we've faced has made us stronger," Sylvia said during the fleet's unveiling ceremony. "We're not just survivors, we're explorers, creators, protectors. This is our chance to show the galaxy what humanity stands for." The first ship to launch was the EHS Phoenix, named in honor of Earth's rise from the ashes of war. Its mission was simple: to seek out allies, learn from other civilizations, and ensure that humanity would never again face the threat of extinction alone. As the Phoenix disappeared into the void, humanity stood at the precipice of a new era. The war against the Vrexer had tested their strength, but it had also revealed their potential. And while the galaxy remained a dangerous place, one thing was certain: humanity was ready. The EHS Phoenix soared into the vast unknown, its engines blazing a trail that marked humanity's boldest step into the galaxy. On board, a crew of scientists, diplomats, and soldiers represented the united strength of Earth. Their mission was clear: to establish alliances, explore uncharted worlds, and demonstrate humanity's commitment to peace and progress. The galaxy, however, was far from peaceful. While many species welcomed the fall of the Vrexer, others saw humanity's rise as a threat to the fragile balance of power. Rival empires, wary of the species that had defeated the apex predators, began to position themselves for potential confrontation. On Earth, Dr. Sylvia Harker worked tirelessly to ensure humanity's readiness. The coalition had expanded its defensive capabilities, building orbital stations and deploying hybrid fleets to patrol the solar system. But Sylvia's vision extended beyond defense. "We can't thrive if we live in fear," she told a gathering of coalition leaders. "Exploration is the key to our survival. If we remain isolated, we'll stagnate. The galaxy is vast, and we have so much to learn." The Phoenix made its first major contact with the Trinari, the scholars who had offered their aid during Earth's darkest days. The Trinari were an advanced species known for their knowledge of the galaxy's ancient histories and their unmatched skill in bioengineering. They welcomed the humans as equals, offering not only resources but also access to their vast libraries of knowledge. Captain Elena Torres, now serving as the Phoenix's commanding officer, led the diplomatic efforts. The alliance with the Trinari solidified humanity's place among the galaxy's major players. Together, we can ensure that no species ever faces the horrors of the Vrexer again, Torres said during the signing of their treaty. The Trinari shared vital information about other civilizations, including warnings about the Zenther Dominion, an empire that had been eyeing Earth since the fall of the Vrexer. The Dominion was a militaristic species with a reputation for conquest, and their growing interest in humanity was troubling. As the Phoenix explored further, reports began to filter back to Earth of Zenther scout ships appearing near the edges of the solar system. The Dominion's leaders were testing humanity's defenses, probing for weaknesses. The coalition responded decisively, deploying hybrid fleets equipped with the latest advancements from Liu Chen's tech division. But it wasn't enough to simply defend. Sylvia and Torres knew that the only way to ensure Earth's safety was to show the galaxy that humanity could not be intimidated. A plan was formed. A delegation, led by Torres and Sylvia, would meet with the Zenther Dominion to negotiate terms. But the mission carried immense risks. The Zenther were known for their ruthlessness, and any sign of weakness could lead to war. The meeting took place on neutral ground, aboard a massive space station orbiting a dying star. The tension in the air was palpable as Torres and Sylvia faced the Zenther delegation, led by their supreme commander, a towering figure draped in crimson armor. "You are a curious species," the Zenther leader said, his voice a low growl. "To defeat the Vrexer is no small feat, but your kind is young, untested. Why should we see you as anything more than a fleeting anomaly?" Torres met his gaze without flinching. "Because we are more than just survivors," she said. "We are builders, explorers, protectors. The Vrexer thought we were weak, and they were wrong. Make the same mistake, and you'll find out just how wrong you are." Sylvia added, "We don't seek conflict. Humanity has suffered enough. But if you push us, we'll respond with everything we have. And I promise you, it will be more than you expect." The room fell silent. The Zenther leader studied them for a long moment before finally nodding. "Perhaps you are more than I thought. We will observe for now. But know this, our patience is not infinite." The delegation returned to Earth victorious. While the Zenther had not fully allied with humanity, their acknowledgement was a significant step. It bought Earth the time it needed to strengthen its defenses and forge new alliances. The new dawn. Back on Earth, the Phoenix's return was met with celebration. Humanity's first steps into the galaxy had been fraught with danger, but they had also opened doors to unimaginable possibilities. Sylvia, standing before a crowd of thousands, delivered a speech that echoed across the stars. "This is only the beginning. We have proven that we are more than just survivors. We are a species of creators, explorers, and dreamers. We will continue to rise, not through conquest, but through unity and innovation. The galaxy is vast, and we are ready to claim our place within it." As the crowd erupted in cheers, the Phoenix prepared for its next mission. Humanity's journey was far from over, but the path ahead was filled with hope and promise. The Vrexer were gone, but their defeat had forged a legacy that would endure for generations. Humanity, the species once underestimated, now stood as a beacon of resilience and determination in a galaxy that had learned to respect their strength. And the stars, vast and uncharted, awaited their next chapter.